My job as an MC is to make everybody feel the best they've ever felt and look the best they've ever felt on a stage. As a speaker, my job is to let the audience know that they've got this. And here's maybe one or two things that I can share that maybe they didn't know. And that's my job, to stay one step ahead. So as meeting professionals, we get to look at, okay, what's the one nugget that one of our audience members is going to get from bringing this speaker in? So when working with you, it's like, what's the one thing that they can get from your recommended speaker, Seth? And that is so important.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Keynote Curators Podcast. I'm Seth Deckman, your Keynote Curator. Our guest today is Carolyn Strauss. Carolyn, welcome to our podcast.
Thanks, Seth. It is so much fun to be with you. I mean, you're just so fun. That's what your clients need to know, right? When they work with you, it's not like just business, it's actually fun.
I'd like to think so. There might be some jokes, but just generally there is a lightheartedness and, a fun spirit that I like to bring to it, because after all, you can do business and have fun, right?
We're also in the funnest business in the world. If we do it right, this is the funnest business in the world. I think meetings and actually getting to connect with people and be with people. Who else gets to do that other than actors? But actors have to do the same lines over and over again. We don't. So it's even more fun for those of us who like to think on our feet.
And in this business of events, which events are a vehicle for everything: innovation, collaboration, important messages, meaningful connections. But fun is that common through line where you feel it at the events, right? There's an energy, there's a spark, and there's a spirit of upbeatness, not only from the meeting professionals, from the attendees and everybody else involved. And I know you know that because you deliver that all the time.
Oh, thanks. I think a lot of it comes from the beginning is the intention of the event, right? I mean, that's where everything comes from. I mean, you and I talked about it before your podcast, right? What is the intention that we want people to see, have, do, be, or feel while they're listening to this podcast, while they're at events, when they hire the incredible speakers and MCs that you represent? You do curate what their intention is and match it with the right speaker and MC. And that's a skill, my friend.
Well, thank you. I mean, we take it seriously, but like you said, we like to have fun along the way. It is important. The right MC can make your event. The wrong MC can break your event. And we're going to get into all those kind of topics and ideas and information and insights that are going to make a difference for everybody involved in the production, organization, and execution of meetings. Where does this podcast find you today, Carolyn?
It finds me in my home office. I am based in Denver, Colorado. And so today, this is a beautiful day. I got to get my workout in early this morning and then run home, answer some emails, and then be here with you. I feel like I really am the luckiest person in the world. I feel so blessed. The meeting professionals that I work with from the AV teams, I mean, they are my direct partners in an event. And so many of us forget that the AV team and the energy of the AV team and bringing them in to the pre-meeting huddle at the beginning of what we want everybody there to see, have, do, be, and feel. When we work with the AV team, their focus and their sound is going to be to amplify whatever we do in the pre-huddle meeting. So that's one of the things that I always suggest to my events, my meeting professionals when I'm working with them. And a lot of them forget to do that. So if that's one tip, a morning pre-huddle with all of the stakeholders is so important to set the energy in the space.
Yeah. It's a great way to create the intention. Everybody's aware of it, but if you verbalize it, right, and you get it out into the air, into existence, it memorializes it even more at a deeper level. But also, if there's anything in the space that is kind of the pink elephant in the room that needs to be addressed, the weather, somebody from the team is unable to make it, There's some technical challenges that are being worked out. Whatever it may be, it's also in that huddle to address that, speak to it, and kind of, be aware of all that.
And also, how do they wanna deal with timing? So as the MC, like when I'm a speaker, it's a different thing than when I'm the MC. But when I'm the MC, it's how do you wanna deal with timing? How do you want okay, can I tell a quick story?
Please, that's
I
why
was
we're here.
emceeing a conference, and there was a governor who was speaking. He was doing his 20 minutes to welcome everybody at the beginning of the first day, and he was supposed to do 20 minutes. And at 26 minutes, he's still talking and he was not wrapping up. So, as the MC, I'm sitting in the back of the room with my AV team, and I walk up to the side of the room and I walk up to the meeting professional. I'm like, how long do we want, just between her and I, how much do we want him to go? And she's like, well, he needs to be done now. And I said, do you want me to handle it? And she said, can you? I said, of course I can. He's just a person. So I very gently walk in front of the stage and he's not paying attention. He's at, the lectern and he doesn't see me at all. And I walk and I literally walked right in front of him, walked up to him and went just like this. So nobody could see except him. He looked down at me and I went, and he looked down at me and he looked up and he said, well, I guess my time is up. And I, with a huge smile, ran up the stairs behind him, walked up, my hand on his back, shook his hand, said, thank you so much. We so appreciate you being here. Let's give him a huge round of applause. And now we're going to move on. And our next speaker is. And it was
Yeah,
like, and
yeah.
I just handled it for her. So that's the kind of thing that you've got to trust. If you have trust in your MC, you'll allow them to do that, but also B, having somebody like me who has, I have really bad OCD over controlling disorder, which actually makes me a great MC because I want to control all of the environment that I'm there to serve. So anyway, long story, but
No, it's not a long story. I mean, it's a great story, and it actually points to something that's important, and it's keeping the time because if it bleeds out into a break, then your food and beverage is impacted. Then people to make those meaningful connections is impacted. The bathroom breaks, people need to take care of their well-being. Then you have sponsors at breakout sessions or other types of sessions that people have to then hurry to as opposed to having the show flow as it's designed. There's always things that are going to happen. So you need to intervene, and whether it's elegant or a little bit rough or crude, the commitment is to the attendees and the intention and the outcome of the event, which is what I know you always have your focus on.
I have to tell you another story. I was moderating a panel. So I was emceeing the event, but they needed a panel moderator for this really high end panel. And there were a lot of acronyms. So it was a medical. I do a lot of medical, biotech, and pharma. I love really intellectual stuff where the
Mhm.
speakers can tend to be a little dry. So I love bringing the energy up in the Q&A and bringing the energy up. But anyway, I'm moderating this panel, and the four panelists, and each of the panelists was supposed to have a 5-minute intro to what they're working on and how it works. Well, the final panelist is going on and on and on. And again, my job to take care of the time. So at like 6.5 minutes, and I actually notice, and this is the other thing, you've got to notice and have sensory acuity for what the audience is doing. So I notice the people in the room are looking at their watch, and I see them doing that, and I'm looking at mine. And the minute he stopped to take a break and he was giving all of these initials and acronyms, and I stopped him and I stopped and I said, my favorite acronym? PD, the estimated time of being done. And the whole room erupted.
Yeah,
He smiled at me because it was done in a funny, cheeky,
right.
but very respectful way. And then everybody else on the panel got to do the Q&A, and I ran around the room with the microphone. So again, it shows a little bit of my over controlling disorder.
Well, but the commitment is to the attendees and serving the
Yes,
event's intention and focus and mission. And if somebody gets their
100%.
toes stepped on a little bit, albeit in a cheeky manner, that's small potatoes compared to the bigger picture. And, I think as an MC, I think one of the biggest challenges is the moving of the show and the flow whilst you're keeping that energy up. I don't know why I keep using whilst. I just
I
like,
love that. Well,
it just as some
hence, we'll keep having this
hence
conversation.
henceforth we will continue to use whilst. It just keeps being woven into my use, so I'm going to roll with it. But while that's going on, keeping the energy up, engaging the audience, underlining, marking, emphasizing what's important, keeping the through line going. It's the timeline. And you have to be a little bit of a combo of a loving drill sergeant to move
And a
it forward.
loving parent, like making sure that everybody's okay. So I'm not a mom. I have one, she's great, but I'm not a mom myself. So I get to use all of that maternal energy that I've had, like, holding on to all these
Yes.
years to
Yes.
now take care of, right? Both parents, right? I get to be the authoritarian one that goes, okay, here's what's going to happen next. Also, the other thing, context is so important. You've got to remember it is risky for a lot of people. Attending events is not their comfort zone. And so one of the things that I love to do is let people know what's coming next so that they can
Right.
breathe. If there's going to be an interactive part, when the breaks are, and I call them info bio breaks, by the way, they're information and biology breaks. I call them info bio breaks when I'm emceeing
Like
because
that.
right? Because it's so important that people know that they are going to have a moment to check their email and check their texts and check in with their families and make sure that everything is okay. I mean, we never know what's happening in the mind of any of our audience members. And we've got to just hold the space for them to take care of themselves and for us to take care of them in what we're delivering. It's so much fun. And I love working with wicked smart people. I'm from Boston, so I can say wicked smart. I love wicked smart people because I know more. I emceed a big medical conference right when we went virtual in 2020, and it was about COVID. I learned more in
Yeah.
May of 2020 about COVID than most of the doctors because
That's right. Yeah.
so I have learned so much, which is where I can keep my energy up. Somebody will say to me after 3 days, how do you keep your energy up? I'm like, every session I go to, I learned something new. So, as meeting professionals, we get to look at okay, what's the one nugget that one of our audience members is going to get from bringing this speaker in? So, when working with you, it's like, what's the one thing that they can get from your recommended speaker, Seth? And that is so important.
It's incredibly important. And COVID, post COVID, virtual, hybrid, in person, what is becoming more and more apparent is that there is, I like to use the word tailor. And every speaker, and I'm not being facetious here, they will tell you they tailor and they do. But it's becoming more challenging, more demanding because buyers are more sophisticated, but more importantly, attendees are more sophisticated. And it's not like they've been there and heard that, but sometimes the Everest summiter is the appropriate speaker to align with the messaging and what we want our attendees to take away or to learn about the challenges, the human condition, whatever it may be, as that story goes, or a little bit more content, less inspirational, less motivational content specific to the industry, whatever it is, pharma, medical, energy, communication, transportation, whatever it may be. But yeah, it is that curation and that real specificity to make sure that the attendee gets what they want.
What I always
Um,
say as a speaker, so if I'm being brought in as the keynote, and by the way, a keynote and a master class is my happy place. I love doing a keynote, in the morning or at lunch or even in the evening. I can be really funny after dinner, but because I don't drink when I work, by the way. By the way, that's a rule that I made for myself when I was 25 and I was commentating fashion shows for every department store in the country. I was like the top plus size fashion show commentator back in the, 90s and early 2000s and a little bit in the 80s, but I deny that age wise. But I made a rule for myself that I don't drink when I work. So, but you can be more funny after dinner. But my point was that I think the job of the speaker, the easy part, at least for me, is the onstage part. The challenge is the curation of what content, what's my energy level that they need, What's my space in the program? Do I need to bring it up? Do I need to bring it down? Do I need to keep it, do I need to give serious content? Do I need to do more stories? But what exactly are the people there missing right now? Because everybody's missing something. Look, what I say on my website, events are expensive and content can be found online. So, what is it that you as a meeting professional can bring that they can't find online? One of them is the energy, right? The comment that I get after every session that Seth, is, "Oh my God, Carolyn, I loved your energy. I loved your,"
Yeah.
I mean, if I, every single person, right? And that's what I can bring that's just organic.
What
Everything else I have to
say,
create.
talk a little bit about your process where you're discovering where you need to dial in for, whether it's the energy part, the content part. Talk a little bit about that process.
So I have in my office a giant whiteboard that has all of the different content that I've curated over the past 30 years, right? I mean, I've been doing this for a really long
You've been
time. It's
doing this
my
since you're 5.
Thank you. This is why I love you. Yes, but I've been really speaking. I've made a living. I've never had a real job. I ran a multi-million dollar clothing company. I had the third largest clothing company on the home shopping network for 18 years, the Carolyn Strauss collection. So I spent 18 years doing live television. So there are so many pieces about sales and so many pieces that I learned about managing up and managing down when I spent my 18 years working with the home shopping network, with my own company, having 35 employees in the United States and having factories in the US and then some overseas as well. So the experience of learning that there are all kinds of pieces about sales and connecting with the customer and the keys to making your product irresistible when your competition isn't. I mean, there's all of that. So when I speak on sales, I can pull from all of that and from the fashion show commentating. I modeled also. I was a plus size model in
I
New
know
York
that
City with
about
the
you
Ford
too.
modeling agency for 20 years. I was a plus size model. So I can understand women's struggles with their bodies and with their self image and with the clothing that are available out there. So for me, so is it a women's audience where I can be more talking about women and the challenges that we face in sales and in the marketplace and even right now in politics, which is a whole different podcast, right?
Right.
Then there's also the work that I've worked with tons of CEO groups and I do consulting for corporations. So what we study there is how to actually get more done with less, how to keep your employees happy. I'm certified in Patrick Lencioni's Working Genius work. And that is the most, by the way,
The
okay, want a
table group.
nugget? Go table group. Go to workinggenius.com with your team and have them take the assessment. If I can help, that's what I'm here for. Reach out to me. But do that because it is the most powerful. I mean, I love strength finders and I love discs and I love Myers-Briggs. I get all of that, but Working Genius is so specific to how to get the most productivity and the most joy from work.
Okay,
So
meeting
so
professionals, you have your first assignment.
but see what I'm saying? So there are so many pieces of what I've invested in myself in. I mean, I invested in studying with the best of the best in the communication realm, in the relationship realm after 30 years. And the other reason I keep doing that is A, I love to learn. And B, I need to stay one
Yeah.
step ahead of my audience and one step ahead of my meeting professionals and knowing how to deal again with the AV team and with the people who work on site. I mean, I always thank the servers and the people from the hotel and they're thinking, Carolyn, that wasn't on your script. I'm like, but these are human beings who are helping continue the energy that we set forth. Again, set forth whilst enhance. This is probably the most
Right.
intellectual podcast I've
Right.
ever done, but seriously, right? They help continue the energy that we set out for the day.
I want to revisit a comment you made or a phrase you used, managing up and managing down. I'm curious to get your take on this and your expertise because meeting planners are constantly managing up and managing down, meeting professionals, whether it's with vendors, internally is probably the area that's most challenging, where they have an idea, let's just say, for example, a speaker, they've been given a directive. We say, hey, here's the event. So there's a location, there's a date. Here's historically what we do. This is what our focus is, whether it's a theme, a topic, or some type of initiative or messaging or a current mood that's important, and go ahead and find that. Along the way in the process, whether it's somebody up or down, they saw an economist, an astronaut, or a juggler, and it intervenes or interrupts that whole process. What can you share with our meeting professionals that optimizes or makes the most effective managing up and managing down?
Or
And
a
I know,
couple of
it's not cookie cutter, and I know it's not one
n
size fits all,
not at all.
and I know it's not 7 steps to easy
No.
managing up or 6
No, no,
keys
no.
to managing down, but a structure, a general mindset, if you will.
A structure, when managing up, always assume that they know what you're already gonna say. So my favorite line managing up is, "Look, I know you already know this, but what I would suggest is, or what I've learned is, or who I just found is." So what that does is it takes any of, well, A, you don't think they're, stupid, and it also lets them know that you did the work to have this conversation.
Now
So
you
that is
say you're assuming, I know you already know this, because the editor in me would see you probably already know this, but is
see,
that lowering the status?
it is. I would say, "I know you already know this.
Hmm.
I know you already know this," right? You can say this, by the way, this also works with your spouse. "Sweetie, I know you already know this, but Valentine's Day, is in February, and here's what I would love for a gift. I know you already know this." So you're not saying, "You know what I really want?" and assuming that they don't. So that's one wonderful little tip. The other one is
It's a phrase, it's disarming.
it
It's
is.
yeah.
It calms the nervous system of whoever's listening. The other phrase that you can say is, if our audience is anything like me, if you're anything like me, or if our attendees are anything like me, what's missing right now is a feeling of safety with the world being as disrupted as it is. So let's bring in a speaker who can talk about sanity in chaos, which, by the way, is a speech I did years ago, and it showed up in the shower today. And I'm like, oh my God, how to create sanity in chaos. And
Yeah.
sanity, by the way, is support, action, know, integration, trust, and why are you doing it, right? That's sanity. And I swear I have not thought of that in years, but I was like, you know what? That might be time to
Yeah.
reinvent that
Yeah.
speech and
Reimagine.
to reinvent it because everybody's stressed, right? So again, there are just little tips from managing up, but I know you already know this is one of my absolute favorite phrases. And the other phrase is, the good news is, so a meeting professional can say, the good news is I'm working with Seth and he has given me, Mary Kelly, Vernice Armour, and Jim Davidson if you want to climb her to Everest. Here are 3 speakers that I think could fit the 3 different slots in our conference. Let's have a meeting with the 3 of them, right? I mean, so the good
Yeah,
news is
that's great. And it's, I love the phrase, you already know this, because if they don't, then
it
you're
calms them from not knowing it.
you're right. And you're
Yes.
you're giving them like a positive assumption, if you will, and you're elevating their status, and putting
Okay,
them up.
that's the thing. Why are we not elevating everybody's status? If you look at the genius of Oprah, okay, she was there and lifted everybody else up, which brought her up with them. My job as an MC is to make everybody feel the best they've ever felt and look the best they've ever felt on a stage. As a speaker, my job is to let the audience know that they've got this. And here's maybe 1 or 2 things that I can share that maybe they didn't know. And that's my job, to stay 1 step ahead. Maybe they did. Look, I'm not going to know anything about the medical stuff or the farmer stuff. But what I do know is how to deal with, let's say, a vendor who's not delivering on a timely manner. And by the way, the way you do that is you use the phrase, let me tell you how we work. There is nothing that anybody can come back to you when you say, "Let me tell you how we work." They can't say, "Well, we don't do it that way." Say, "No, that's okay. Let me tell you how we work." So as a meeting professional, you can say to one of your vendors, "Hey, let me tell you how we work. We want our contract signed 60 days in advance. We want a site visit. We want a sound visit. We want to bring in our own AV team. We don't want to use the in-house team, or we want to use the in-house team, but we want to bring in our own
Right.
project manager." It's simple to get what you want if you're clear on asking for it in a way that doesn't cause anybody else upset or embarrassment.
And unfortunately, many people are in that, whether they're an upset waiting to happen, embarrassed, or, you know, for lack of a better word, they feel less than or lower status. So we're having to navigate the culture or these pitfalls or mines, if you will, in the field. And we're constantly dealing with those type of things to overcome in time to talk about what's most important. Tell us a little bit about your take on, emotional intelligence and how that plays a role in being effective, whether it's in sales, storytelling, persuasion, and not only its effectiveness, but how it can be developed.
So, emotional intelligence is a wonderful topic that is not, by the way, I would not speak on it. It is not my expertise, but my experience with it from being in front of audiences and working with CEO teams for, executive teams for years. It's understanding that the most important thing that you can do when dealing with other people is to stop and breathe. Know that? The most important people is let people catch up with you. Most of the meeting professionals I know are really smart and they know what their intention is and they know what they're working toward. But everybody else who you're talking to has not been in the 20 meetings beforehand and they haven't caught up with you. So emotional intelligence is really just feeling the room and then taking a pause and stopping and breathing. In fact, as an MC, sometimes when we come off a really high end, high content, million things on the PowerPoint, which please, meeting professionals, let me work with your doctors and professionals to help make their slides better. That's one of my happy places because oh my gosh, when you can't read the PowerPoint from the back of the room, it's not a good PowerPoint, right? But anyway,
No, it's not.
sometimes I'll say, okay, that was a lot of information. Everybody sit up in your chair, shake out your shoulders, and take a deep breath so that we can reset. Can do that in any meeting.
Yeah.
And if a meeting's going off the rails, what you want to do is say, you know what, let's all take a deep breath. Let's reset for a second. Remember, come back to our intention. You can do that in any meeting. It calms everybody's nervous system. Look, we are living in such a rate of disruption now on the planet that everybody's nervous system is tweaked right now. Every parent's nervous system is tweaked. Every meeting professional's nervous system are tweaked because of the disruptions that are coming. I mean, we're supposed to get 3 feet of snow maybe on Saturday. I might get 3 feet of snow. It might drizzle. And I'm supposed to be taking my dog to Goldens and Golden, which is the largest conflagration of at least 2,500 golden retrievers and their owners in Golden, Colorado. It is the coolest event. It's my dog's favorite thing in the whole world to go to.
The
And now I'm
home
going, okay, maybe.
the home of the School of Mine ore diggers and where Coors is brewed.
Very good with the beautiful light cross on the
That's right.
mountain, School
I
of
know. Wow, 2,500 golden retrievers. Let's just take a stop for that. Holy cow. So first of all, 2,500 cars, are people carpooling? Is there
There's a
what?
lot of parking in Golden, actually. They've built a couple of fantastic parking garages. That's the other thing, meeting professionals, look at the logistics of what your
I'm immediately
people
thinking logistic
brilliant.
and, and water for the dogs and
Okay, every restaurant, it's the coolest thing. Every restaurant, every shop, every bar puts out a bowl of dog treats and they come out and refill it all the time and big bowls of water. Look, if you're a germaphobe about your dog, you probably don't want to bring your dog there, right?
no.
But Goldens are such happy dogs. Do you know that we were there last year and there was not one fight? Not one
Wow.
like dogs going at
Yeah.
each other. It was
Yeah.
that was the coolest event. Now, that's an event that I think all meeting professionals should attend because nothing makes our heart happy.
So, you're going up there. You don't know if it's going to drizzle, if it's going to snow 3 feet or not, and pulling it all back to our meeting professionals and
Yeah.
their ecosystem and dealing with chaos, bringing sanity to chaos. There's uncertainty, there's unpredictability. Humans are involved. So there's the human element, which is always, there's always a chance for outliers, and what you would expect or anticipate historically can change over time. Connect that, which is a constant,
Yep.
right, to your idea around our spheres of influence and leveraging our spheres of influence in a way that has us perform not only well at work, but in our lives, with our relationships, with I don't love the word hobby, with what our activities, what we do outside of our work.
I believe power used to be information, and whoever was the smartest person was powerful. Until about a year and a half ago, creativity was power. So whoever came up with the best ideas, we now are dealing with AI. Everybody's dealing with Chat GPT. Everybody's dealing with how to be creative that way. I just heard of a friend who wrote a fantastic book in 90 minutes. So I'm terrified of that. Not in terrified in that it's going to take over our humanness, but that the information and the creativity will become so ubiquitous that what makes us special. Here's what makes us special: the energy we bring, what we share with the people in whatever ecology we're playing in that moment, and having a sphere of influence. So, what I always tell my CEOs when I'm working with a group of CEOs is I say, okay, clarity is power. So, what do you intend? So, you're meeting professionals. This goes totally back to meetings, right? What do you intend? And who do you have around you that is on board to play with you? And then I tell them, and if you have teenagers, which sad, you're in that space, right? Right. So if you have teenagers, did you ever notice that it's the kid who was clearest about what they want has the other people around them coming and playing with them? So, what I advise every parent of teenagers is get your kids clear about what they're up to and what they intend and what help they need and what support they need, and only play with people who want what's best for them and they want what's best for you. It's funny, one of my affirmations for years has always been I am only surrounded by people who want what's best for me and I for them.
Yeah.
And that's my immediate sphere of influence.
Yeah, and I just, a few sparks are popping off in my head. I think that your net worth is really your network,
Yes.
the people you surround yourself with, and
Also, your career is formed when you're not in the room. I'm sure you've heard that, right? Your career is not what you say it is. It's what other people say it is when you're not in the room. I got a call the other day that somebody said, "Hey, Carolyn, I want you to keynote this conference." It wasn't you, Seth. It will be next week. But somebody said, "I want you to keynote this conference." And I said, "How did you hear about me?" Because I'd never met this person. I'd never even connected with this person. They said, "Oh, somebody brought up your name." And I said, "But who?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't remember, but I just, I loved what they said about you, so I called you." So, as a meeting professional, what are people saying about you?
That's
And
right.
if you're early in your career, you can actually form an identity that when you say it, they start repeating it.
Yeah. And it's really about who you are and how you show up, as opposed to literally what you're saying in the moment, which, let's just assume it's brilliant and it's important and it's impactful, but
Let's hope.
they're going to remember, what's the phrase, how they felt, not what necessarily what you said. And that is a message or an idea that you can see in brands and brand management, and really in any kind of business, like your business
On
on the
on
home,
home sh yeah, on
on
home
the home
shopping. Well, it's
shopping.
funny because that's why. So as meeting professionals, my favorite question is, "Who am I that they are?" Okay? So it's, "Who am I?" So if I'm the MC, who am I being that my audience is? They are smart, they are professional. They are not scary. By the way, the only reason that public speaking is scary for people is that their audience is scary and dangerous.
Yeah.
I am that they are loving and open and here because they want to get something, they want to achieve something, they want to learn something, they want to connect with people, they want to have something that they can bring out back and offer their sphere of influence. So, who are you as a meeting professional that your corporations that are hiring you, whether you're internal or external, who are you that they are? And
Yeah.
then you represent that to your attendees, and everybody wins, and they'll keep hiring you again and again. I have MC clients, bless their heart, that I've MC'd for 5, 6 years. Every year, they're like, just put us on
Yeah.
your calendar. Put
Yeah.
these 3 days on your calendar.
Yeah. You open the door with that phrase, a little bit of ontological or existential conversation, which I love. Who am I? For you, you are who I say I am. And many meeting professionals, I noticed they're taskmasters, they're project managers, they're prodders and pokers and moving the ball down the field metaphorically. I think many can be unaware or not in touch with that they are the vehicle, they are the pathway for these meaningful connections. Whilst they may not have total awareness around that, does not negate the fact that they are. I think what brings more power to it is that if meeting professional is able to distinguish that, prod and poke, move the ball down the field, be the taskmaster, be the project manager, and add to that the context that you're building a chapel, you're building a huge sanctuary, you're not just laying the bricks down, right? And that you're embodying and you're a vehicle for that change, that messaging, if you will. And I say this to my very own children when they say I can. I said, can't doesn't exist. You're just saying it. And, they look at me like, I'm in the fourth grade, Dad. Like, slow your roll on, your language and all that. But, they understand what I'm saying. You are what you say, you are what you think, and you are what other people say about you and what they think about you.
And
And
there's got to be a way to anchor that. I'm a huge proponent of vision boards. I'm a huge proponent of mastermind groups. I'm a huge proponent of anchoring because you know that every time you see a billboard on, when you're driving down the street, that's somebody else's idea of what they want for you. Well, fine, but how dare they, right? So I want to always suggest that we have a vision board of who we are and what we intend for ourself and our sphere so that every time, put it somewhere where you see it every day. Mine is up to the right of my desk. And every time I sit at my desk, I look up and I'm like, okay, this is what I intend for myself and my world in 2024.
mic drop, boom, brilliant. Carolyn, we're almost at the end here. We
Okay.
could go on and on. There's a lot of affinity. I grew up in Denver. You're based in Denver. The whole Denver, Colorado professional speaking and MC community is very connected. You mentioned Mary, Dave Avrin, Eric Weinmeier, so many others. And you're all supporting each other and encouraging each other and connecting each other with, whether it's work or ideas or being a soundboard or a mastermind group. And, it's a page I take right out of your book. And I love that you're the actual embodiment of you're doing what you're saying. So it's a great example. And I encourage our meeting professional listeners and anybody in that ecosystem, anybody dealing with the production of events, surround yourself with your colleagues who are in your industry or outside of your industry that can encourage and be a sounding board and be another voice for contribution to what you want to accomplish in your career or in a specific event, because the richness of other ideas and another person's point of view that you can weave into your experience or what you're trying to accomplish is immeasurable, because you never know what a conversation is going to bring and what that sphere of influence in your life, in your world, can do to expand your capacities. And as meeting professionals, we have a really big sphere, really big world, and tap into it because that's going to be the value and the wealth in your professional life.
Your mic
So,
drop. There you go. I
Mic
had
drop
mine,
that.
you have yours. There you
Yeah,
go.
there we go. And all right, now we're dueling mic drops. So we're coming into the part of our conversation where we call it 20 questions. It's a little bit of a lightning round. It's not technically literally 20 questions, but it's in the spirit of that. So
Okay, go.
short and quick as possible. You're a talker, I'm a talker, but let's see if we can keep this to 2 or 3 hours. Okay.
Okay, you got it.
All righty. Here we
Okay.
go.
Yep.
What is something that we wouldn't know about you having read your resume?
I'm keynoting the Professional Speakers Association of South Africa conference in April. They invited me, so I'm getting to go to South Africa. Nobody knows that yet.
All right. That's your second mic drop. Whoa, wow, whoa. Incredible. I was there in 2010 for the World Cup. Special. Whatever you're going to do, I'm sure it's going to be magical.
I'm going to reach out and get info. So, okay, that was
Yes.
question number
All
one,
right.
which I didn't know
But-
until yesterday, by the way.
Right. Let's dial in now. On a personal note, reading your resume or looking at your history or your CV, what is one thing that you suck at that you would love to be great at?
Oh God, I can't cook. A kitchen is a room with a phone. I cannot cook. I would be a terrible wife. I don't clean. I don't cook. I think it's why I'm single. I am the worst domestic person on the planet, and it's very sad. Next.
For our frequent listeners, which there are many, this is a common theme. We're not making history with that response. We've heard that before.
Wow. Okay. Yep. Can't do it.
What's your favorite type or form of chocolate?
Oh, I like the Lindor white chocolate ball.
Yeah. I don't discriminate. I'll take them all in
Me
any
too.
way, shape, or form. So, I'm very inclusive as far as that goes.
Okay, Wagner's Chocolate in Ohio have the best turtles, those pecan
I know turtles.
Wagner's Chocolates. Go
right.
there.
Okay. Wagner's, you're going to have to call us for that plug, okay? I know you said you're from Massachusetts, you're from Boston. Everybody's like Pakika and the Harvard Yard and the Packy store and Wicked Smart. Give me one term or phrase that is not so common when people take the piss out of a New England accent that you can give to our listeners. And I have one myself, so you better bring your
you're
A game.
thinking, because maybe it'll trigger me. I can't think of anything.
I'm not going to give away the answer. It's not that easy, Miss Carolyn Strauss.
Well, I mean, all I got is Wicked Smart.
Okay, Wicked Smart.
Oh, this is one. I don't know if I can say it. Wicked Pissa. We used to
Wicked
say things were
Pissa.
Wicked
I'll
Pissa.
give you, if you were auditing, I'll give you a pass and a credit, okay? But I can't give you a grade. In New England, in Boston, in Massachusetts, when you go to the water fountain and you need a drink,
To
they
the
send you
bubbler.
to the bubbler.
To the bubbler. Of
That's
course. You know what it is? I'm so from there that it doesn't occur to me that it's not a normal thing to say, right?
Well, it's outside of what the conventional taking the piss out of, the accent is, right? Nobody knows that one.
The
We were
bubbler.
this summer in Cranes Beach and we had some beautiful fried clams up there in Ipswich. It's just a fantastic place. A lot of green heads that bite you. All righty. I have a couple more for you. 3 adjectives that would describe you.
Okay, right. No stories. 3 adjectives. Funny, a little bit sarcastic, and generous.
There you go. Funny, sarcastic, and generous. I'll buy that. I'll throw in a pinch of energy. What's the last book you read?
Range by David Epstein, which talks about how instead of being a specialist, being a generalist now is actually the key to being successful.
Yeah. We're seeing that a lot with kids in sports where it used to be go to lacrosse camp or go to be a goalie. Now, and I worked with some great Jack Nicklaus and Sugar Ray Leonard and Bill Walton, and they're all, no, but one of the things that I pulled from that was all of them. Jack was a swimmer and Sugar Ray ran track and Bill loved tennis. And, that variety really gave that generalist gave it that range, if you will, is what he speaks about. Love that book. Have it on my bookshelf. Social media, friend or foe?
Friend.
Yeah.
Friend. If you're smart about it, if you don't let it suck you down, it's brilliant, because how else are people going to know that you exist? There's so much noise. I think right now it's the only way for people to know you exist outside of your immediate sphere.
Yeah. And not only is it a friend, but it's a wicked good friend.
It can be.
I think that brings us to the end of this episode. We will revisit down the road, Carolyn. We want to hear about South Africa. We want to hear about the keynotes and the emceeing you're doing and how you're keeping all of those doctors in line with their acronyms and their melatonin type of PowerPoints. But I just want to thank you for coming in and having the idea and the intention of providing something that's going to make an immediate difference for our listeners, and having a focus on what they can learn and take away and use immediately that can impact everybody that they work with in their own career. And that just speaks of your generosity of spirit and your large-heartedness. So really, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for everything that you do for all of my speaker colleagues and for the meeting professionals all around the world.
You're welcome. And to our repeat listeners, thank you for your return, for coming back. And for those who are first-time listeners, we appreciate you being here. Please share with your colleagues, your friends, your neighbors, your family, your postman, your milkman, whoever it takes, bring them on board. You're going to be smarter for it.